y'all gonna get out? This is the First Liberty School and also church. We're located here on the left. The first time we did the driving tour, there's the steps. First time we did the driving tour, the building was there. The building is no longer there now. Drive down and turn around. Does look like we're going to get out. Eugene's going to tell us about it.
But she's on it.
Okay.
You got it? Okay.
Get Gina on the pulpit up there.
If those of you see the marker here, in 1846, the First Liberty School, there was only 13 original public schools in Cape Girardeau County. And Liberty was one of those 13. And that school is located about less than a mile north. And in 1890, this school building was built here, the front steps remain, and our ancestors that in my lifetime knew actually went to school here. And the school, as you can see, was raised not too many years ago. This marker was put up in 1976, but actually the school was still standing back in, correct me, 2004. Am I right there?
I think so.
So it's just been torn down in the last...
It was leaning.
Yes, it was
Still leaning, but it was still
very
standing.
dilapidated, but it's gone now. It's been completely torn down. But in 2004, the shell of the building was there. So this is where, this was probably, and Doris can help us out too, this is probably where early school teaching was at its best. So I'll let it go at that.
40 and 41, I taught school here.
1841?
I think it was 40 and 41. It was my first school, had 12 kids, and Elroy Kinder has written an article in Southeast Missouri in a time or two, and I was his teacher. And he says I was as big a kid as they were. I played all their games, whether it's baseball or volleyball. No, not volleyball. We'd go shove across the roof, hide and seek, or whatever they played.
That's what leaning over. That's called the leaning
Annie over. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I stayed with O'Neill's up there on top of the hill. And Elroy says I walked to school with him. He had a sister, and they just lived about halfway through with the school and where I taught. It was kind of fun. The first year you'd get kind of lonesome, but there were nice people I stayed with, the O'Neills.
How did the students and the teachers get here?
We walked. I think I built my own fires and swept the building too.
Well, I bet you did.
Probably.
I bet you did.
Hey, do
They
you want
what?
pictures without the barbed wire? I think it's there. I'll crawl under there and get them off. Would you like one without it? That kind of looks
Sure.
like a
I
concentration
get a picture of you
camp,
taking the
know?
barbed wire
I'll
off.
get it.
I
You want
probably,
Out on the
yeah, you don't want the barbed wire around there. You want it to look nice.
That was one.
Cousins, I tell you.
Yeah, but they weren't
Ought to get a
perfecting the
picture of them.
No.
I actually couldn't
Hey,
get on there.
I'll get a picture of them in action.
Put it over on the steps because they'll otherwise when they mow it, they'll pick it
I'm
up.
gonna put it back after they take the picture.
Oh,
okay.
No.
We don't want it on there.
Put it up on the post. Okay.
Now wait,
It says for number 4, at 1.5 miles is a blue house on the right. Well, there's not a blue house there anymore. It's been torn down, and the property is owned, well, I don't know. It was owned by Ronald and Shirlene Brennecke, but their daughter, Tanya, that married Mark Wendell, has a new house in place of where that blue house was at, okay? And
We're going back this way now.
we're going back that way. So look on the left as you're going back at a new house. And also, they have a daughter, Lillian, that is 5, and they have a new son, Mark Logan, that was born 2 weeks ago.
So he's the youngest.
He's the youngest, and he was in church this morning. For the
should've
first
come
time.
he was
They
the
should
one
have been
making
here.
And I understand, don't quote me on this, I guess, but that old barn that was sitting over there is a Sears and Roebuck
Right.
barn.
That is right.
born where?
Okay, on up this way.
I was
There's
right.
the
Saw it whenever you came across that.
It
hill.
didn't look like it was going to stand much longer.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, along
yeah.
there. And there's a new metal building just beyond
Yeah.
it. Yes,
Oh.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
I
That
saw
is-
the old wooden one.
Yes,
Okay, well,
okay.
that's what I'm talking about. They said that's an old Sears and Roebuck barn.
You ordered it from Sears and Roebuck
It comes as a kit, and
catalog,
to have a reunion there sometime.
You could order everything.
and they.
Okay, somewhere down here, there's a dirt lane, but we're not going to drive down it. And it was to Chapter H, Carl and Caroline Brennecke's house. I'm reading from the directions. It might be the other way. I don't know. I'm confused. There's the Sears Roebuck. So we're in South Clark. I think we were just circling around. We were supposed to have seen what we had already seen. We're going to have to go back and get some of this stuff. We're in Tilsit now. So we're looking for County Road 335. So this is 335. And it says
How many miles?
that the Frank Brennecke J. farm adjoins his father August Brennecke farm between Jackson and Tilsit. So somewhere in this area, the two farms adjoin, I guess.
Hey Dad, how many miles?
So at 4.9 miles, which we're almost there, we're there. We'll see we didn't get a picture of it. Is the land of Frank Brennecke farm. Daniel was the son of Frank Brennecke. Another son, Benjamin Brennecke, lived nearby until, well, we can't get much from here. I think back there we were supposed to, can you back up a tenth of a mile? I don't want to have to re-drive this part of it. There was a shot out that way. Roll down your window when we get there. See?
Jerry, move your head. I can't see.
Roll down your window. That's good. Roll down your window. So we can get a better shot.
Jerry, move your head.
So this would be it. Okay, I guess go. At 5.1 miles, there's a sign reading McCullough Buttersweet Ridge.
I'm at 5.4.
So we passed it?
I didn't see any sign.
A portion of this property is where August and Wilhelmina Brennecke lived.
What county road am I supposed to be looking for? Yep.
I think I remember this.
Yeah, I remember this now.
Okay, there's the
Ridge.
McCullough sign. We had to turn around and come back. I think they're probably up here. This was where the August and Wilhelmina Brennecke property is.
They said they were going to drive down to the house. Is the house down there or is the house back there?
Well, there's a house down further. Is that what they said?
Yeah, they said they were going to go
Well,
to
I
the
know
house.
all this they told us was the land.
Yeah, they weren't going to meet at the field. They were going to meet at the house.
Well, then we need to go on down. But all of this right here is August and Wilhelmina's land they showed us.
I remember that. down.
Did you get lost? Part of the farm, and then halfway down the lane approximately is where the Brennecke portion is. To the right as you go back down the lane is a little single tree, is where a cistern used to be. And behind it is pond that I think I told you about the last time that was called a buffalo waller. It just holds water. It's not a pond, it's just a hole in the ground. And it still will hold some water. When we moved here even, there were still, everything was double fenced. That was true of the old part, and I'm sure it was originally with the Brennecke portion. The old barn sat where that one does. It was 150 feet long, so it's quite a bit longer than that one. Set on limestone for support. The original house, Uncle Herb and Vern, if Vern were here, he would love it because he knows all about the grandmas and grandpas and visiting and them making beer and having such a good time. In fact, Aunt Bertha and Maida and Uncle Albert Shopper, they were two single ladies, two brothers and sister that lived here. The farm was originally belonged, I was looking at the abstract, I have it on the table there under the carport. A Bohm is who originally sold to Charles Shopper. No, sold to the first Brennecke. I'll get it. And his wife sold to Frederick Brennecke. March the 10th, 1856.
Sold to Frederick. I thought this was the home of August and Wilhelmina.
Okay, it is.
Oh, then it goes on.
It goes on.
You have to wait for the next.
So when you're saying sold, did they sell all of this land, including that area down there where August and Wilhelmina's house was?
That was 60 acres. There were 60 acres in that tract. And then it was bought eventually by Charles Shopper.
Would you repeat that thing that you said about Henry?
Yeah, that was Heinrich.
Heinrich what? His first name or last?
Adam Heinrich.
Adam Heinrich.
And his wife was Catherine.
Sold to
Frederick Brennecke. Uh-huh. And then Frederick Brennecke and his wife Dina sold it to Wilhelmina Brennecke.
See, that was my great-grandfather, Frederick. Yes. They sold to August and Wilhelmina.
I believe, Well, it was sold originally just to her.
Just to her?
What year?
Name is not on here.
What year?
1856, I believe.
Oh,
1866.
Well, that was after
She was
Frederick.
he was dead already.
Frederick Brennecke and Dina sold it to Wilhelmina April the 18th, 1866.
When did Frederick and Dina buy it?
They bought it that first date that I had, 1856.
And who had it before then?
Adam Heinrich.
Heinrich Adam. Wilhelmine passed away, and there were several heirs. And I'll get to that. I think there were 8 different heirs, and that's why there's so many pages. Also, there were 7 heirs, and they divided between themselves $775.20. That was the when they
Wilhelmina when she died.
when Wilhelmina died. I thought that was interesting because that would have been just a little over $100 a piece, and in that time I'm sure it was quite a lot.
And they didn't give anything to the son's state in Germany because she'd been lending him money all along.
Exactly. There were 2 cases. There was also the children of one of the sons that had died that would have been entitled, and that person too had their portion was And that's similar to like what Dad did with my brother's children, in that we divided. Their children got my brother's half, my brother's fourth. There were 4 of us children. And it works out real well that way. Then,
So then this is not the farm that August tilled. This was sold to Wilhelmina after he died.
he may have, you know, in those days, it's like my brother-in-law farms a farm that he's farmed for 50-some years, but does not own it, and that could have been a possibility too. Wilhelmina, it ended up that Jacob Brennecke and Henrietta were the ones that ended up with the property. And I didn't see where they made the deed direct to Jacob and Henrietta, but in their spellings, it says Schaefer instead of Shaper, and there are notes made on here in different places about the spelling. But that was done. It was sold to Charles Schaefer Jr. February the 10th, 1877. The reason this is tagged is that's how I got the Century Farm sign. You have to submit that to the extension, and I tagged it years ago and still had the tags on it.
My recollection was Wilhelmina could not sell the property for many years until Schaefer stepped up and bought it. And then sold a piece of that to Jacob, I guess.
I think so, and then it went to, yeah, you're right. And there's also another mention in here, but that, I was thinking, tagged it years ago and still had the tags on it.
My recollection was Wilhelmina could not sell the property for many years until Schaefer stepped up and bought it. And then sold a piece of that to Jacob, I guess.
I think so, and then it went to, yeah, you're right. And there's also another mention in here, but that, I was thinking of the bones. That was where it came to the Shopper farm again. They put both of these, and I have to go back and forth constantly to even halfway understand this. But, and then there's several mentions, and Doris will probably remember.
Doris is in the car.
No, here you are.
Do you remember a mention of Caroline Rose? Rose?
No.
Anyway, she, Wilhelmina Rose.
Maybe that was her name. I don't know. I probably got it down in some history at home, but I doubt it.
And that's another part of a farm. 158 acres.
Well, the Brenneckes, had quite a few acres down in this area.
Yes.
And if you look on a map, I looked on the original map at what's the archives, and I found these original
Maps.
Yeah. And would you believe they weren't even in the courthouse at that time? They were
At the library and
no at the archives. Yeah. And you can see all this in the archives. Their original plots of ground. And they sent to Washington, D.C., and I forgot how many, 2 or 3 months or year, or I don't remember. I've got it down at home. How long it took that all to get back from there and for them to get the all the deeds and whatever went with it.
During those years, it seemed like they were they're very frugal. I do know that, even Aunt Bertha and Maid and Uncle Albert. Very thrifty people. we're pretty thrifty compared to a lot of people our age, but they were much more so. Everything was grown on the farm. I can remember that the old smokehouse was where that one to the left of where that cattle feeder is, and the frame of that old smokehouse is still there, and it was and the building was still there when we moved here, but eventually rotted. It was completely logged, and it had windows and a full cellar under it. So my thinking was the barns were usually built first. They probably lived in the smokehouse before building the original house, which was on the other side of that barn. And I think that's how most of the people moving here from Europe did, especially those that farmed. Bern has said many times how this looks like the portion of Germany that all of the families came from. And it is like Doris and Uncle Herb and Bern working on the books. They didn't live real close together, but it was a good general area, same area of Germany. And therefore it makes you think that there was correspondence back and forth, family knowing family of some distance, and therefore they were looking for terrain probably that looked like what they came from, plus having type of soil that they felt that they could farm and make money. And obviously they did well because both the Brennecke, the farm south of here that is now the subdivision, Saddlebrook subdivision, was at one time a Brennecke farm, and I can't remember the first name.
Ben Brennecke.
Ben, that's right. Anyway, it was sold to Mr. Took, who was mayor in the lumber yard over at Cape. He owned it after that, and then Bob Morrill, owned it then, and then his son sold it to his son Bob, who sold it to the people that built the subdivision.
That's shown on that map I was talking about, that original map. That's in the archives.
That it was Ben's farm.
And the entrance to that subdivision, Saddlebrook, that was originally the Dan Brennecke farm.
Yeah.
Before Rob Booker Boston got it.
Yes.
And that was the son of Frank Brennecke.
I don't know that.
That's
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yes.
And there was another Brennecke as you go, the county road that goes past where the old city dump used to be. That there was a Brennecke there, and I can't think. Burke's on the property now, and that goes out to the road that goes out to 34. That was also a Brennecke.
Milton and Joyce lived there.
Yeah, we used to live there on that Burke farm.
Oh, did you? I'll be doggone.
Yeah, we're turned to go to the city dump.
Yeah.
That's where we live.
Of course, I'm a little, people don't understand how I feel. I appreciate that I have such a nice subdivision next to me, but they don't understand how I feel in losing a little bit of seclusion that you don't find anymore.
Yeah.
Now I do, especially in the wintertime, it's not so noticeable now. But I'd have to move to Bullinger County, Madison County, out in the real hills.
That's being built up too.
Yes, it's starting to get like that too. I can't tell you how much I love this place. Whoever thought that I'd be where I spent my summers, a couple weeks every summer, Keith and I, and then eventually Kathy too. Dad farming, of course we farm, Shannon's retired now, and he does hay. We don't row crop. We tried that once here, and the farms, like a lot of farms, it was farmed out as far as producing a good row crop. It would take a lot of years to recover that. One way of recovering, of course, is to keep it in pasture, and it also helps keep it from washing. The old part of the old part is that field back there of the Brennecke farm, if I remember correctly. And it does wash real bad, but we fill in the hay bales and try to make it a little better. One thing, and that's one thing Dad did when he bought the farm from Uncle Albert. He took out the fencing, all of the fencing. Of course, that's been a number of years ago. Back in 1960 something, I want to say 62, because he had owned the farm about 4 years when Shannon and I got married. But he took out the double fencing. He made the fields larger so they'd be easier to work on.
But this is where August and Wilhelmina, when they first came here, that's where they settled, right?
Yes.
But they must not have owned it then if it was sold to Wilhelmina later? Is that what you were saying?
They, what's the right word? They're the original owners, and that's why they petitioned and sent this application into Washington, D.C. And then they got, I don't know whether they had to pay anything for it or not, but that's how I think they came about this ground.
What do you call that term?
That's what I'm trying to think.
And then they did so much of that. If you stayed there so long.
Yeah, and he had 2 40-acre tracts and a 20-acre tract, if I remember right, that are. And there was one
So you're saying that the United States government sold it to Wilhelmina?
Yeah.
It's very possible because this one that one on the Shopper farm is the state to the Shoppers.
Actually, sometimes the paperwork is
And it was straight from the state to the Shopper family. I can't find it now. State of Missouri to Charles Shopper. And it was 100 acres. And it was direct from the state to Charles Shopper. So it was like going west, where you settled, and after you've been there so many years, like Doris said, I think that's what they did. When they had the runs, the land brushes with the Louisiana Purchase ground. And that's what this